guitar balance is okay. Cheers, Josh. Right. Hi, Bert. Shut up, Jake. Who is Dean Town? Anyway, that's enough of that playing. So I'm waiting for a video to render in the other room. And yesterday, who was it? Lee asked if I could do some more live streamy stuff, and he had some ideas for what I could do. So I'm watching the comments over here as well. So if you've got specific questions, I'll try and answer those. But I think one of the things he was asking about was how do I learn and practice a jazz standard, for instance, as I guess that's one of the main things that I do. He asked if I could do like a transcription thing live, but I'm not sure that will work properly because of the way the sound works. So I'll just show you what I'm working on right now, and I'll field questions on the right-hand side. And I think that'll do things. And then also I want to talk about the goals of the channel at some stage, if that is interesting to anyone. So yeah, I'm playing through the California Tweed, and this is an Ibanez bashed up thing. It's not actually old. It's come from the factory like that, and I have the pickup cover still on there because it's hilarious. Right, so what am I working on right now? Aside from little licky things that I'm doing, so this is one thing that I quite like the sound of that I discovered the other day. which I'll probably write and put on my Patreon at some stage, because I think it's quite a cool little. I'm going to work that out and stuff and figure out other ways to play it and those sorts of things. But what I'm working on right now is a tune by, I don't know who the tune's by, is it Arthur Schwartz, someone like that? But I saw Keith Jarrett playing it. It's called Then I'll Be Tired of You. It's like a jazz ballad. I was sharing some of Keith Jarrett's playing with a friend, Des, and this came up in the suggestion, so I listened to it and I thought that's one of the prettiest songs I've ever heard, so I decided I'd try to play it. I've also listened to a Jack Jones version of it, I think, and Nat King Cole. So I've listened to sort of 3 versions. The one I prefer the most is the Keith Jarrett one, so that's kind of what I'm listening to more. And what I'm doing initially, that's a dog. Initially, I'll sort of play along with their version. Just the melody, and then I'll try and bring in chords behind it. But the main thing that I'm working on is trying to keep the melody flowing and the dogs barking. So that's really cool. So I've got on my phone, it's called Drum Genius, and there's this ballad thing, ballad drum beat. So I'm just playing along with this at the moment. So I'll try and get through it and see what happens. Questions on the right hand side I'll deal with when I stop playing, but it shouldn't be too long. But feel free to leave some questions and tell me how rubbish I am. anyway, that's where I'm at. So at the moment, I can't quite get the middle eight is middle eight. Is it middle eight? I guess it's a middle eight. So it should go. No, how should it go? Yeah, can't really do it. It's what it's supposed to do. And there's a dog coming. So it's supposed to go. So I specifically need to practice that little section a bit more. Jake, top fan, you're an idiot. Have you transcribed that? Mostly improv. So I'd say it's mostly improv. The melody bit is obviously the melody. Sorry. So yeah, the melody. Is transcribed, I guess you'd say, from the Keith Jarrett version, and some of the harmony, like the framework for the harmony, is kind of coming from that. But yeah, it's mostly improvised, I think. Well, improvised, or like I'm not doing the same thing every time, and I'm not really conscious of what I'm doing, but there are things that I'm going to repeat. So so this chord I'm grabbing a lot because it is one that works. I guess I could grab that. Grab it again. And I'm doing that again and again. But the little fills and stuff improvised. There's one thing that I'm trying to get in, which I've not managed to yet, which is it'd be over the F minor to B flat. It'd be like a. I'm trying to get that kind of in. So I guess timing wise, it would have to be. Not working. Right, hold on. No, right, it's not working. So there's a couple of like little fills and concepts that I might try to get in. I don't know whether once I actually come to try and film the performance, whether they'll end up being in there or not, because it's not something that I consciously try and force, because otherwise it will throw off the whole rest of the song potentially. And I might have had like a decent take that was going okay, and then I try to shoehorn in a lick, and then it will fall apart potentially. So. Turn the bass down, yeah? Does that improve it? Okay. Cool. Hopefully that's better. Is that better or not? Okay, I'll just turn off the little boosty thing. Right, where was I? So I think it might actually be clipping on the amp as well, but hopefully it's not doing it anymore. Jose, is that how you say that, or is it Jose? I don't know. The tune is called Then I'll Be Tired of You. Then I'll Be Tired of You. And it's a jazz standard, but it's quite a little, I don't know, I've never heard it before this week. But there's a version by Keith Jarrett that you might want to check out. Yeah, there's a version by Keith Jarrett and also a version by Nat King Cole, which is really cool, and then a version by Jack Jones, which is kind of less cool, but it's still pretty. Right, have I answered those questions? Right, anyone else got any other questions? I'll just do like a little bit of nonsense playing while I wait. Hey, Jason. Or maybe I should actually work on that lick thing. I'll do that for a sec. So the idea is it's going to happen after I've implied the F minor chord. And the other place that I might do it is into the, when I modulate to B major for the middle eight, which I'm struggling with at the moment. So see you, John. Good name. Have a good day. Can't play, right. Chris, the neck on these, they're nice and full, like a good full C. I heard someone saying the other day, I think it may be Ross Bailey from Yamaha, that the Ibanez's have like a wider string spacing. I don't know if that's true or not. I guess maybe they are. I mean, he doesn't normally talk bollocks, so probably true. It feels comfortable to me. I played it before I got this. I had like an Epiphone ES339, and before that, I had another Epiphone ES339, which I thought I liked. But in comparison, that neck feels kind of slim and square-ish, whereas this feels kind of full C and comfy, if that makes any sense at all. I think it's got a flattish radius, but to me it feels pretty comfortable. I'm not sure on the scale length. I'm not really particularly one who cares too much about specs, but if a guitar feels comfortable, I'm happy to play it. And I'm pretty comfortable playing this guitar, so that's kind of what I like about it. It's not the prettiest thing. Actually, I think the neck looks pretty cool from behind. And yeah, I think the relic job is probably a little bit daft, but yeah, I kind of like the guitar still. Teach you some jazz. Just learn lots of tunes is all I could advise. That's all I've managed to do. You do get pretty chords in jazz, which is kind of cool. Is there a particular method you recommend to learn how to do outlines of chords? Do you mean favorite Kemper profile? Shall I just say my own? There's one really nice clean one that I made, which is of the Mezza Boogie Electrodyne, which I guess you can just see in the corner. That's one of my favorite clean tones to use. Like a book. So I don't know if this might be like a vaguely controversial thing, but I'm not sure how much jazz there is to learn in books. I'll just show you the books that I had. So I got these two books probably when I was like 18, around then. Like, it's called Intermediate Jazz Guitar. It's the Jody Fisher. It's called The Complete Jazz Guitar Method. But you'll find in it that a lot of the chords are kind of things like this. Which are fine for comping, but not really that easy to work around a melody. So if you notice, like, a lot of the chords that I'm playing as I try to play melody, so let me try and do something. Someone pick a song. Hey, Will. Someone pick like a jazz tune that I might have heard, or they might have heard me play, and I'll try and play it. I'm not promising it'll be any good. I'll wait while someone comes up with some idea. I guess it doesn't even have to be a jazz tune. Oh, I have to check that out. Rick Beato did an interview with Eric Johnson, apparently. That's cool. Was that recent? Isn't She Lovely? Autumn Leaves. Favorite things. All right, well, that's 14 songs I've got to do now. Right, so favorite things. I'm just going to tune again. The only one of those that I've never played is Like Yesterday, and I didn't know that. Beato interview with Robin Ford, I guess. If you're a Beato fan, you might know the answer to this, but I've never really seen him playing much guitar anywhere. Does anyone know, like, where I could refer to, like, actually watch his guitar playing before I try and butcher a bunch of tunes? Right, so I'll try, since it was originally Jose that asked, or Jose, I don't know how to pronounce that properly. We'll try my favorite things. But he's like a session player, isn't he, right? So that's how I would play my favorite things. Sorry, it was appalling, but I've not really played much guitar yet today. So if you'll notice that a lot of those chords are kind of simple, except for these ones. And so So most of the time, because I'm trying to play a melody, I'm mostly trying to just play something simple that outlines the harmony. So it might only be one note or two notes. So these chords work nicely because I know I can play everything in an A minor 7 and then, sorry. So all of the chords I play are relatively simple versus what you'll find in these kind of books. I don't think it'll be that easy to fit into the middle of a solo guitar performance. So, and some of the voicings sound a bit naff anyway. So simple stuff for me is more useful. So if you, for instance, this is what I recommend you do: find a bunch of tunes, or just start with one, and try and play the melody. So again, most of what I'm thinking about there is trying to keep the melody going, and then I'm just grabbing whatever comes to me in the moment chord-wise. So that really only comes from practicing doing a lot of that. So that one was supposed to be Autumn Leaves, which Jake said. I mean, he's jokingly said Cliffs of Dover, which is super helpful. Isn't she lovely? That's going to be tricky, isn't it? How am I going to do this? Alright, I need some sort of rhythm. Let me try again. 2, 3, 4. That's too fast. Yes, Chris, I'll upload this later. Let me try and. 3, 4. So that's my bad attempt at Isn't She Lovely? Again, so most of what's going on there is me just trying to get through. So it's a relatively simple so yeah, sorry about playing, but that's, I've not really practiced that ever. But if I was gonna do Isn't She Lovely in that format, that's what I do a lot of until the sort of timing came together, and then there might be a few ideas that came to me that I could do that weren't just basically trying to get through it. But again, most of what's going on is relatively simple. So I've got that kind of G sharp alt, and then C sharp minor, F sharp major, that's what I'm trying to get going on, and then I don't know, something like that. What other tunes I've got to try? I'm going to answer that question on the what was it? The question on the Angelico stuff in a sec. Right. I like the Nora Jones stuff. I guess I can try that in a sec. All the Things You Are. Like Yesterday, I've never played. Blue Bossa, Ryan said I'll try. Try Blue Bossa. I'll try. Sorry, I've already forgotten. Don't know why. I guess I've got to try then. I'm not going to do All the Things You Are because that's a roast. And also I get confused between that. Cheers, Stacey. Thanks for stopping by. Have I had a chance to check out the new D'Angelico Mini DCs? No, I haven't. What's Jam Band? As in the jazz. What is Jam Band? Sorry, obviously not, because I don't even know what Jam Band is. Sorry, Brett. The Mini DC. So I really liked. I like Grateful Dead and Fish. The only things I've seen of the Grateful Dead. So I'm from the UK, and they're not really a thing over here too much, I don't think. But I've seen a few John Mayer videos playing with the Grateful Dead. That's all I know of them. Cheers, Jose. I'd say that the Epiphone ES339 is probably a better bet and bang for your buck, as they say, than the Mini DC. I do have a D'Angelico SS, but it's I think it's Korean-made guitar, and they're kind of expensive for what they are. They're not bad guitars. They've got quite a slim neck as well. The ES339's got a slightly more substantial neck, I think, and is what, like 300 quid. So I would kind of recommend trying one of those, and if you get on with it, that's a good guitar for the money, I think. Right, what was I trying to play? Keep the questions coming if you've got them. Liquid Tension Experiment. Are they a jam band? Sorry, sort of, maybe, probably not. Right, what was I thinking? Don't know why. And blue bossa, I can try. Never actually played blue bossa like this. Try and play something not awful. Right, I'll come back to that in a sec. Right, so yeah, I'm the same as you. That's what these AMVs are kind of. They're the same body style as the ES339, like slightly smaller. I'm like 5'11", so not tall or anything. So these 5'10" and a half. Sorry, I don't want to lie to you. Like an ES339 kind of sits more comfortably. I had a Casino for like a second and I hated it, just because your arms like way up here and you feel like you're 4 again. But I kind of like the cheaper end of the Epiphones. I kind of dig. I've got a Epiphone ES175 premium thing that you might have seen. But yeah, it's pretty decent. How do I think about working in chromatic elements in a blues context? I'll come back to that once I've done a little bit more blue bossa and try and not sound awful. That's about as good as I can do without practicing it. So blue bossa, again, if it's something like that I've never played before, I'm trying to keep this stuff, the chords really simple, and I'm sort of playing the sounds in my head as I try and play it, like to hear where the harmony goes. And I guess if I played it more, I could get a bit more adventurous and come up with some nicer stuff. And I'd probably play it slower than that. Right, so blues, chromatic playing in blues, chromatic elements. So right, the first main thing that I think of, so let's consider it in A. The first and probably most obvious thing that you can think of is during the changes, when you go into the 4, think about chromatically approaching it from above. So hey Jason, I don't really want people to start sending me money like that. I prefer it if you like maybe shared the videos around. I don't like, I'm not like, I do okay money wise. Mostly what I'm trying to do, I guess I should talk about this in a sec, is to like grow the subscriber count. And hopefully that comes from like doing useful stuff. But there's no need to send me money and stuff. If you want to buy presets, that's kind of, they're $2.99. That kind of helps a bit. And also, I know you're a Patreon person, and that's super helpful. And I think I've set the upper limit of whatever is it what would it be called? I don't know. There's like a tier system, but I set that all at £3 because I don't really want people sending any more, because this is what I like to do anyway. So I'm kind of lucky that I get to play guitar all day. So if you like what I do, just keep watching it and maybe share it around if you can. Yeah, and I guess the idea is hopefully a few people like it, like yourself. That's kind of why I try to do what I do, and also why I've tried to do, you know, like videos where I'm answering questions that people have asked. Like this, that's literally what's rendering over in the other room at the moment. So I don't need you to send like specific money or anything like that. Just keep coming out, hanging out with me, and if you can share my videos around, that's kind of the best thing you could do to help me, alongside what you're already doing. So that's super cool. But thank you. Right, so blues, chromatic for Brett. So I don't know if you're still watching, but that was the first place that I suggest. So that's kind of got this Robin Ford-esque thing, I guess. Hold on, I'm just going to text someone. So yeah, then the other area that I would use it is, so think if you're thinking arpeggios, which is kind of how I think of blues. So that would be, I try to do the same concept arpeggios as I was doing there. So yeah, that works. So above and below is kind of the cool thing about chromatics. They kind of work. I guess I wouldn't call myself a blues player at all, to be honest. But from the focus on jazz, that's where I've started to appreciate the blues stuff. And growing up as like a kid, I was a bit of a rock metal orientated person. My favorite players were like Gary Moore, who did dabble in the blues. I guess dabble now is like a bit of a stupid word. Like, he was a great blues player, but I think there's some blues aficionados that don't consider him all that bluesy. Now I listen to, or well, I say now, I've been listening to for a few years, really, 10 probably, but like Robin Ford and Larry Carlton, who are kind of that jazz blues thing. And then players like Matt Schofield, I can listen to now and appreciate, and that sort of stuff. But I guess my approach to it is sort of jazzy. So I guess my chromatic stuff comes from around there. Why would you expect me to like Gary Moore? He's a boss. So that's my bluesy stuff. And yeah, bro, I do kind of like that concept of sliding from below. Especially if you're doing, if you're implying it. And then the in terms of like actual fully chromatic stuff, like I've never really managed to figure out how to get that to sound good. I guess it's about where you land. So most of my playing is about like short enclosures. Yeah, I guess so. What I'm doing then, I think, there's that little chromatic thing. I do a lot of that. Someone that does do mixing in the chromatics in a way that I really like is there's a guitarist called Charlie Allen, who Jake is a fan of. I think he originated from around Bristol, which is kind of near me. But if you listen to some of his playing, he mixes in some altered stuff really nicely, and some chromatic stuff really nicely. And I think that also comes, I think he's a bit of a jazzer as well. I've not necessarily figured out how you can get the altered scale to sound. I've not got it to sound good in any of my blues playing, I don't think. So I guess you could. I guess maybe this is something I should try doing a bit more of, but like coming off the A. So with that implication thing, no, not going to work, is it? But so that would be what I would try to do. So imply that that's an altered. Let me just try it a sec. So yeah, actually, I've got almost zero control over that altered thing and making it sound anywhere good, which is why I don't really do it on that sort of thing. My altered scale stuff comes mostly in a jazz context over like a 5 or a minor 5. Yeah, bro, I think that's kind of a good approach. The other cool thing about all right, Des, get on, son. I was wearing your hat in a video a minute ago, the Bradford's one. Anyway, the other cool thing about the let me just show you a sec. That altered thing, the cool thing about it is that if someone else is implying the altered thing in the comping, it kind of sounds good if you just play the normal blues licks over it. Anyway, let me just try and demonstrate. Ah, brilliant, I've got rid of that. So what are we doing? That is D Des. So it still works over the altered shit. I'll try and do something. So it doesn't really work for me still, but that's how I'm thinking of it. So even if someone else is playing altered stuff, you don't necessarily have to do it. What's the other way? Hold on, there's an easy pentatonic device which we could use. Let me try and figure it out. That's not quite it. Something about a minor third up or below kind of does the thing. Definitely not below zero. Kind of over that older stuff. The main goal is to try and land back on something nice inside. I need to work on it a lot more, which is kind of outside the major scale, which is where I'm most comfortable. But yeah. Hey Scott, it's not that smooth, was it? Scott, you should meet Jake, who's further up in the comments, who has my actual Iridium, because I traded it with him for. See you later, Desert. See you to wait tomorrow, day after tomorrow, isn't it? For this Van Wielden thing, but this is a bit unwieldy. So I'm waiting for Strymon to get me another one because they're not in the country at the moment. Coronavirus and that. Oh wait, I'm not allowed to say that word. But yeah, there should be an Iridium. I should be able to buy one again fairly soon. So I'll be doing some more videos with it, I think. Because I do sort of miss having one around for doing the demo-y side of stuff. I guess people can keep dropping questions. Bring distortion pedal. What distortion pedal do you want? I said to you, you want an overdrive pedal anyway. Anyway, so the idea is that some of the demos that I do, I really like the way I could just plug them in front of an Iridium on the round setting, and I kind of didn't have to worry about tone and that sort of stuff. At the moment, I've been doing that on my JC Maya patch on the HX Stomp, which also works pretty well. Jason, you have a Helix LT. Do you need both? I think I've already done a video on this. The Iridium's cool, but the downside for me is that it doesn't have a tuner on it. So when I go to do I get up in the morning, no one really knows this, why would you? But so I get up in the morning, I come in here and I do sort of 1 or 2 videos, just a bit of playing. What I liked about having the Iridium was that I could just plug it in and I knew something half decent would come out of it. You know, if I was doing a demo video or whatever. The downside was that it doesn't have a tuner on it. So that kind of cocks up a bit of my process because I've got to plug into something else to make sure I'm in tune. So I know it sounds like a super trivial and irrelevant thing, but for my kind of uses, I like to plug into the thing, be able to tune, then get on with my day and whatever recording I'm trying to do. That was a downside for me. Clip-on tuner, yeah, I don't have one. I should probably get one. I don't have one. I do have a Korg Pitch Black, but it's not really in my. It's not in. I think it's in the car somewhere. It was a bit weird. This is the second time I'm saying this because I said stuff about this in a video earlier on today, which should be up relatively soon. So the cool thing is that not having the Iridium for a while has made me try more stuff with the Helix and the HX Stomp. So Jason, like you, I can just get up, I can plug in the HX Stomp is what I use mostly, and I can put it on the John Mayer patch, and I can plug any of my pedals in front of it, and I know it's going to sound how I want it to. The other thing is that it then makes me do more adventurous stuff like the Eric Johnson tone videos that realistically I can't get too close to Eric Johnson with an Iridium, but I can get a little bit closer with some of the stuff on the Helix or the HX Stomp. And then the kind of last point on it is that the Iridium has a really good Fender tone, has a really good Vox tone, and has a really good Marshall tone, although it's not a particularly heavy Marshall tone. So for me, I spent like 60–70% of the time on the Fender tone on it. But on the HX Stomp, for instance, I spend most of my time on a litigator patch or some of the Marshall. See you, Jake. Enjoy. Instead of doing altered scales, you could do this. Wait, so what am I going to do? Play a D minor. If you're in A, play an A, D. Forget it. I can't explain it properly. Brain's not working. So yeah, the litigator patch I really like. Patch, the model, and what else? I really like the matchless ones and all that stuff. And then the other thing that I do like about the Helix and HX Stomp, which is something that I couldn't do with the Iridium, is to have a, I don't know if any of you've got my patches, but I have like a split dual cab thing going on with most of them. One's an IR and then the other one is a stock cab, and that's kind of the core of most of my tones. And I like being able to do that with the Helix HX Stomp. Which modeler do you think has better feel and dynamics? The Iridium has kind of a wider dynamic range, I think, than the Helix and the Kemper. And it's much more difficult to get a bad tone out of it. The worst tone you can get out of it, if you go onto the Vox setting and turn the mids all the way down, that's pretty much as bad as it gets. But even that's not terribly awful. So feel and dynamics, I guess feel generally is about dynamics, isn't it? And I guess whether there's latency or not, I'd say the Iridium does probably sit at the top of the pack in terms of dynamics, and also simplicity and ability to get a usable good tone out of it. Obviously, if you're a metal player, it doesn't really do much for you, and it's sort of limited in that you've got 3 kind of good amp sounds, but that can be a good thing as well, because simplicity is not always a bad thing, is it? I did a lot of comparison with the Kemper as well, and I think, to be honest, the Fender, Vox and Marshall sound as good as anything pretty much that I've heard out of the Kemper as well. Brett, pedals are more fun. Yeah, I don't know if did you ever see some of the stuff that I do with the Helix where I've got like a freeze patch in that area? I think the the Helix is a little bit more fun. Although if you've got a freeze pedal and a looper pedal, you can do all that stuff anyway, which I do on this board right here. So yeah, it's a fair point. Shall I do some talking about the goals of this channel or something? And if you want to ask questions, I'll still try to answer them. What's your favourite pedal, by the way, Brett? Oh dear. Right, so I guess it might be worth reiterating kind of my beliefs on some of this stuff, but I don't really want to take money from companies to feature products is kind of the basic idea. But I am happy to accept pedals that I'll feature on the channel, if that makes sense. So I guess some people might think of that as a form of payment anyway. But I know that some of the bigger channels would expect payment to do a thing. I kind of don't really think that that makes sense, because anything that I want on my channel, I kind of want to say that I could recommend this thing or not based on the fact that I've played it for a while. So for instance, the J Rocket sent me some stuff. I've also bought some J Rocket stuff, and I found that it works really well for me. So that's why I'm so happy to kind of like feature it on the channel and stuff. Now there's a bunch of other stuff that I buy. You know, I bought a Strymon Iridium, I bought a Helix, I buy Mezaboogies. But I guess it's just, I guess that's kind of my own problem and my feeling, that I don't think that it's necessarily right to accept money to feature stuff, because it's just advertising, isn't it? So as a concept, I don't think there's probably anything wrong with it, but it doesn't really sit that comfortably with me to feature a thing that I didn't genuinely want, and don't genuinely use, and to just feature it for the sake of some money rather than actually build up a bit of a relationship with the product. And yeah, sorry, Jorge, Iridium that I was talking about. I don't know what I was talking about, to be fair. So yeah, anyway, I think, yeah, the Iridium, I would say, comes at sort of near the top of the pack for dynamics for those 3 amp models that it does. I don't think there's a better Fender, Vox, or Marshall model out there. I've got a Kemper and Helix and stuff. So if those are the actual tones you're looking for, I think it does really kind of, it has great feel and dynamics. I think the dynamic range of the Iridium is slightly more than some other devices. So you get more dynamics and feel. Hopefully that answers your question. And so the aim for the channel is to try and just get some decent stuff featured on it. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to be accepting payment for stuff. So for instance, I have like a little bit of a relationship with Yamaha where I can send them texts and get a reply. That's the level of my relationship. But for instance, they sent me the, I couldn't post the link to show which it is. I've never heard of it. I'm not going to tidy up, Tim. Don't tell me what to do. And so they sent me over a Yamaha Pacifica, whatchamacallit, Mike Stern. It's not my guitar, I've just borrowed it for a bit. And also the Pacifica prototype that I put up here. So that's kind of cool to be able to feature that. And then also likewise the millimetric guitar. I said to James from Homertone, you know, is there anything you've got that I could have for a bit and play for a bit? And he said, yeah, take this for a bit. That works for me, because hopefully some people are interested in seeing different gear and bits and pieces, and I just play the gear, and I don't have to say I 100% recommend this or anything. It's just I'm playing this stuff. So yeah, I guess the goal for me is really to have more stuff before it gets released, if that makes sense. So for instance, there's something I can't talk about here, by Origin Effects, which I've been working on some demos for, which will be released at some stage. And that's kind of cool for me to be involved at like the start of a project. Not start, but you know, early on. And like I was fortunate enough to be able to jump on board, I think a bit of a mistake with the Strymon Iridium, and therefore some of my videos were like the first, or within the first handful of videos to come out about the Iridium. That's kind of what my aim is. And so people can come to my channel and you know, get a sense for how a thing sounds. I'm not trying to sell anything, and and I'm not paid by anyone to say, you know, this product is great or whatever. I can literally just say, well, I've been playing this thing for a month, and here's what it does well, here's what it doesn't do so well. And then if there's ever a product which I really just don't like, then I don't bother to feature it. And like I bought a few different things, like a Boss DM2 Wazza, and it didn't do anything that I thought was worthwhile. I bought an Earthquaker Afterneath, which I do like, but I've not featured that yet. I bought the J-Rocket Lenny just because I wanted a boost, and you know, I can borrow off of friends that have gear and do stuff that way. GFI Systems sent me the Cabzeus, which was really cool, and so I used that, and I've done some videos with it, and that's a really useful tool. You've not sent a link, Jorge. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. I don't necessarily want to get too involved in the kind of snake oily stuff and trying to say, you know, any of these pedals are the best things ever. And then one thing that really annoyed me that I've seen is that something like the Boss MS3 switcher, there's videos up there where people have said that they play this piece of gear extensively, you know, offer like a product launch, and then you never see them playing that device ever again. And to me, that seems like a bit dishonest. But yeah. Brett, yeah, so I bought the Lenny. I just did a video and compared it. I didn't compare it, but I compared it in my head to the Kingsley Page, and I vastly prefer the Lenny. It does just everything that I like. It's like quite a warm, round boost, whereas the Page is quite sharp and immediate attack. So for me, the Lenny does more of what I like. And the way that I use it is I kind of roll off the tone. I'll just show you a sec. So this is without the Lenny, then with. So live, that was, hey Phil, that was what I was using for like a bit of a boost. And no, not always on. No, I used it for like a boost on a jazz gig where it can boost things and then smooth off the top end to give that kind of thunky. I did mean thunk as in THUNK, funky thing, like a bigger hollow body would give you. And then it also smooths out some of the top line stuff. So for instance, so that sort of thing, that's the way I'm using it. Also sounds really nice with the Strat in that kind of context. At the moment, it's adding a bit of clipping to the amp, which wouldn't be necessarily what I'd want for live, but I think that might be because I've got it in 2-watt mode. So that's how I use it. I use it as a boost. It's also a little bit more, a little better behaved. Like the Page, as I said, gets a little bit stiff and bright, and some of the Thorpey boosts that I've tried, they have like crazy amounts of headroom, even like all the way down at the bottom of the dial. So that was a bit inappropriate for what I was trying to do. So the Lenny seems a little bit better behaved all round in my setup. So that's why I like it. Tim, I don't have any Wazza headphones, no. I do wonder if they do as good a job as just a good pair of headphones would do. So for instance, I've got some Mass Drop Sennheiser open back headphones, and those were a bit of a revelation for me because with closed back headphones, you don't necessarily realize it, but the high end gets a little bit, I don't know, compressed and closed off compared to the open back headphones, in my experience. I'd never tried them, and then I tried some and I kind of like them. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of the goals for the channel. I want to hopefully make useful stuff. So gear demos is part of that, but not paid gear demos. I kind of want it to be just, I'm playing this gear because I like it, and no one's paying me to say anything about the gear or even show you it. It's just because I like the stuff that I'm demonstrating it. And so I guess that's why there's going to be a continued kind of process of stuff that I bought, some stuff that might have been loaned to me, some stuff might be given to me, but no one's ever going to have paid me to just put something on my channel. That's the goal. I don't know whether that sounds daft or not. What else? And then the other thing is I kind of want to keep, like, I thought that chord video was vaguely interesting and I've heard some good things, but I thought that was a way that I've not really seen done before, of kind of handing someone some stuff to do with and you can immediately use it all because it's all diatonic. Whereas if I showed you 7 versions of C, or something, it's not immediately obvious how that would fit into a song. Whereas as I showed you, and what else did I do? Or was it that? And then, so I'm going to do more of that kind of video, I think, if that was useful for people. Maybe next week I'll do another 7 chords, or if people want me to do it sooner, just leave some comments and tell me. I can do that. But hopefully that sort of stuff is useful. Maybe some kind of videos about practicing, whatever I could do. Little things that I'm working on. Hello, Saya. Like this. Little cool. I'm going to try and flesh out into slightly bigger ideas. And then there's other things that I'm practicing, like that. Nope. Which I want to kind of flesh out into bigger exercises. Yeah, so there's little bits like and pieces like that that I've got floating around in my head that I'm trying to do stuff with. And then the main goal is to just keep playing guitar. So that's why most of my videos tend to be kind of, cheers, Brett. Hopefully I answered most of those questions okay for you. Sounds sort of Ben Unison like. Yeah, Ben Unison's a really cool player. I think we listened to some similar stuff like Keith Jarrett, I know he likes. Here's one of his licks, Ben Unison. Where would it be here? Finger's not working. But I really like his kind of style of playing. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I'm working on. So specifically, the idea was, if I just talk through it quickly, is that is the start, and then that thing is repeated. And the idea was to move that around the pentatonic shapes. I wouldn't say I've mastered any of it. That's probably not what you're saying anyway, to be fair. Tips, do a lot of it. Groups of 5. So what was that? Was it that one, or which one of those was it? The first or the second? You just said yes, first or second. The first. So for the first, figure out how you're going to pick it. I pick it strict alternate picking. So that's how I would recommend it, since that's what I do. But so play it super slow. And try and get the feeling of it like rolling, is my best kind of advice that I could give on it. So it should kind of, hopefully at some point, start to feel effortless to a degree. And then you can start to build up speed with it, probably. But even for me, it's not something that I can play super fast. When you up the tempo, so try doing it in 4s. So I'm hearing in my head so sort of embrace the polyrhythm of it. And also, if you're thinking 4s, just practice 4s as well. Whoops. And then the other positions are kind of even more difficult. So don't forget to practice them. Cheers, Jason. Good to see you. Yeah, I need a coffee. And yeah, practice going between different positions. And practice going between 4s and 5s as well, and 6s maybe. That's kind of the best advice I can give on that. Same. What was it? No. Same with that. You need to decide how you're going to pick it, and then do a lot of that, and that should probably feel roughly like rolling too. Alternate is the only thing I've ever really practiced other than legato. I did notice that there is some economy in some of my playing, but it's never something that I've worked on. So yeah, I practiced. I think I practiced strict alternate picking. Particularly if I'm practicing this sort of thing. I guess it's one of those things where it's kind of good to have it and then forget it. You don't really want to be thinking, oh, I'm going to strictly alternate pick this thing when it comes to actually playing a line. So a lot of my improvisation is legato based. So yeah, while I practice a lot of alternate picking, I don't think a lot of my playing ends up being. This is one thing that I'm practicing at the moment. Anyway, so that's goals and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully that helps a bit, Ian. What would you define as modal interchange? Just had a question there, sorry. How do I approach improvisation during modal interchange? So I'm just wondering what you would mean by that. Yeah, it's the same thing that I face as well, Ian, to be fair. But I think the main thing that I'm trying to get across is that I've not really ever presented myself as being anything other than this is how my guitar kind of sounds. So that fear kind of goes away because I've never really suggested that I could play a thing perfectly. And the same when I'm playing live, hopefully I'm improvising, I'm trying to create music. And so within that framework as well, there's not a need for perfection, and probably that gets in the way of playing interesting, perhaps. I don't know. Obviously I don't want to play badly either, but part of improvisation is that some of it won't come off, I guess. What was that? Right, so I'm going to head off, I think. If I get what you mean about modal interchange, the answer would be that I'm just thinking about whatever the home key is. So for instance, for a second there, I was playing over an E pedal and I was implying E major and E minor. So I'm just thinking of what the home key is. I'm thinking E major and then G major. If I wanted to imply E Dorian, I'd think in D major. If I wanted to imply E Locrian, I'd be thinking F major. So that's as far as my modal thinking goes, I'm afraid. Anyway, so hopefully this was vaguely useful. Hopefully it wasn't completely boring. I think I've answered most of the questions and tried to play most of the suggestions. Oh, does that make sense? So yeah, I think if I'm thinking right, if you look at some Joe Satriani, there's like parts in his songs where he's playing over like a tonal center and he switches things around. Was that the sort of thing that you were meaning? So that's how I think of modes anyway. I think about what the major home key would be. So I don't really think in modes is basically what I'm trying to say. Anyway, thank you for watching, everyone. And Leanna's telling me to go and sort the dogs, so I'll go do that.